New details about the 5 people found dead inside a Commerce City apartment. What law enforcement says caused their deaths.
The isolation older Americans have been feeling during the pandemic could be impacting their physical health now as well. The unique partnership with college students trying to change that. And a group of restaurant owners have found a way to fight gentrification, how they're keeping money circulating locally so people and businesses can stay.
And major developments in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Why a diplomatic resolution is unlikely to happen.
We start off with a live look outside on this Weather Action Day. After a nice, warm and sunny weekend, we're in for some big changes that are happening fast. Let's get right over to Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson. Mike, it's about to get really, really cold out there.
Oh, yeah. Some of the coldest air of the winter so far, JP, and it's pouring southward behind a cold front. Now, this President's Day will go down in the record books as high of 55 in Denver, almost 70 degrees down at La Junta. But look at the current temperatures. We're down to 21 degrees in Denver as the cold front has moved through, and you throw in the wind, and on exposed skin, it feels like 7 degrees right now in Denver and 16 below zero up in Sterling. That's the leading edge of the Arctic front. We have wind chill advisories out on the eastern plains. The brunt of the snow is going to be in the mountains from this one, but we'll get a few inches on the plains. There's just some very light snow or flurries showing up at the moment. So our weather headlines, Denver becomes Denver for the next several days, with periods of light snow will drop near zero tonight, below zero Wednesday morning. Much heavier snow expected for the mountains. So we'll get on the plains. Here's a live shot from Pearl Street Mall up in Boulder. Just a little bit of snow falling, but folks are certainly bundled up now as those temperatures take a dive.
It's definitely cold out there. Thank you, Mike. And with that cold weather on the way, it's not a bad idea to prepare your home ahead of time. Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez joins us live now. And Ivan, you spoke with a plumbing company today on what steps people should take.
I did, and Mike is right. It's definitely Denver. It's definitely getting a lot colder. Now, this plumbing company that I spoke with tells me on a regular basis they'll usually get about 50 calls, but when those temperatures really start to drop, they'll get about more than 100 a day. Now, 5 things that people can do to protect their homes before those temperatures really begin to plummet include opening cabinet doors to allow heat around the pipes, allowing your faucet to drip even just a little, and knowing where your water shutoff is in case your pipes end up bursting. Felipe Ramos with Plum Pros tells me it's even harder to prepare for the freezing temperatures after having a string of warm days.
So they could just completely be oblivious to it. They may not even know that they have an issue, so that's how the freezes happen. We just get caught off guard. We have a 65-degree day like we did yesterday, and they use the hose. They don't disconnect it or leave water exposed to the elements, and then it hits, and then they got a problem.
Also, don't forget to bring in any outdoor plants as well as your pets for them to avoid that frostbite. Live in Denver, Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
Ivan, thank you. And to stay ahead of this next storm, download the free Denver 7 Plus app for your cell phone or streaming device. We have a 24/7 weather stream, interactive radar, and hour-by-hour forecast. You can download it right now on your Roku, Amazon, Apple, or Android device. We're learning more about the 5 people found dead in a Commerce City apartment yesterday. The district attorney says they accidentally overdosed on fentanyl. DA Brian Mason says evidence suggests they were doing cocaine that was tainted with the deadly opioid. A relative found their bodies inside an apartment at North Range Crossing Sunday afternoon after not hearing from them for hours. Building a criminal case will be difficult, Mason says, because police can't interview the 5 people who died to find out who gave them the drugs. The DA says he's worried there may be more of this batch out there.
My heart sank about 5 people in my community dying, and I am terrified and fearful that other people will get a similar batch or have some drugs from the same batch that these folks had and not know what they're taking and die as well.
Coming up on Denver 7 News at 5 and 6, we'll hear from the families of the victims and what the DA says is the only solution to saving lives. These types of drug overdoses are part of a growing deadly trend. Fentanyl was the leading cause of death for young people last year, higher than COVID, car crashes, or cancer. The National Institute on Drug Abuse says last year 75% of cocaine overdoses were laced with fentanyl, and the same goes for half of meth overdoses. And looking at Colorado's laws when it comes to fentanyl, possession of 4 milligrams is a misdemeanor, but it only takes half of that to kill someone. Taking a live look now at Maidan Square in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. It's one of the country's most well-known sites, famous for being the site of violent political protests that led to the revolution back in 2014. Right now, all is quiet in the country's capital, far away from the tensions in the eastern part of the country. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he will recognize the independence of 2 Russian-led separatist republics in eastern Ukraine. The move violates Ukraine's sovereignty and likely ends any diplomatic efforts to resolve this crisis. NATO allies are condemning the action, and the U.S. is working on targeted sanctions. Hopes for a meeting between President Biden and Putin are not looking good. During a Russian Security Council meeting today, Putin questioned the usefulness of holding a summit if the U.S. was only going to repeat its positions. He also echoed his claim that Russia is threatened by the potential of Ukraine joining NATO, calling on the alliance to withdraw troops in Eastern Europe.
Putin still sees Ukraine as part of the Soviet empire. He doesn't like that there have been discussions about Ukraine joining NATO.
U.S. security officials still believe Russia is planning to invade. They believe Russian commanders received orders to get ready to attack over the weekend. Those officials also wrote to the UN saying that if an invasion takes place, Russia may target specific Ukrainians for assassination or send them to prison camps.
The newsfeed starts with a unique way to fill the gap in nurse staffing. The National Guard now has members training to become nursing assistants. In Wisconsin, state officials are training dozens of Guard members to help fill gaps at hospitals and nursing homes. March 1st will mark a major change for those wanting to take a cruise. Carnival Cruise Lines will be relaxing its mask mandates. They will be recommended, not required, yet certain venues will still require a mask. Now, for the first time in nearly 2 years, travelers can enter Australia. Tourists and business travelers must be fully vaccinated to do so. Australia has had some of the strictest COVID measures of any country during the pandemic. But with the pandemic bringing more isolation for older adults, scams have run rampant. Nearly 1 in 5 caregivers say a loved one has lost money to fraud. More than half of the victims lost $1,000 or more. It happened to the father of AARP's caregiving expert.
He was a little lonely, and he had this guy who thought he was his friend, and he kept calling him and saying he was giving money to disabled veterans. But when I checked into it, the organization did not exist.
Amy Goyer says older adults tend to be a target because they tend to be more trusting and polite. They also may have more money. Most of the scams and fraud do create a sense of urgency.
They pretend to be a government agency like the IRS or Medicare or Social Security, and you have to pay something quick. It might be that they're a utility company, that they say they're a utility company, and that you have to pay a bill or your electricity is going to get cut off.
Now, she says it's important for caregivers to talk to aging loved ones about scams. You can play a role in that. Make sure that their phone contacts are up to date and tell them not to answer any calls that they don't recognize.
We suggest having a refusal script by the phone that says, I do not do business over the phone. If there's something you need to contact me about, put it in the mail and I'll deal with it then.
Now, you can also designate a trusted person. An older loved one will call before any money's involved in any sort of transaction. You can set up bank and credit card alerts, and you can also set up alerts with things like utility accounts to make sure that they are getting paid. If a loved one is a victim of a scam, be sure to report it right away to the authorities. AARP has a free fraud watch helpline as well. They can walk you through who to notify and what to do to possibly get some of that money back and certainly provide emotional support. Now, the shutdown of 3G starts tomorrow. The important safety devices that you need to be updating and who to contact to make sure they keep working.
And the Denver Broncos are up for sale, and a group of investors is attempting to make a bid. Why this latest offer, though, is so unusual, even attracting the governor's attention.